I know what it feels like to end a life, even when that life never existed. That night on Highway 89 outside Flagstaff changed everything for me. I was a long-haul trucker for 15 years, drove millions of miles across this country. But after what happened at 3:25 a.m. on that empty Arizona highway, I never sat behind the wheel of a big rig again. Some people think I overreacted, that exhaustion played tricks on my mind, but I know what I saw, what I felt, and what I almost did. This story was originally shared on Reddit by a trucker who goes by the username DesertDriver22, and when I read it, every detail matched my own experience from that night, like we'd both driven through the same nightmare. I'd been hauling a load of electronics from Los Angeles to Dallas, already 14 hours into what should have been an 18-hour run. The coffee had stopped working around midnight, but I was used to that feeling, that heavy-eyed autopilot mode that kicks in when you've been staring at white lines for too long. The radio was playing some talk show about government conspiracies, the host's voice droning on about things that didn't matter to anyone at 3 in the morning. Arizona highways at night are something else entirely. There's a darkness out there that feels alive, pressing against your windows, swallowing your headlights after 40 feet. No streetlights for miles, no buildings, no other cars most of the time. Just you, the road, and whatever's hiding in that black desert on either side. I remember checking my mirrors, a habit so automatic I don't even think about it anymore. Left mirror, right mirror, ahead, repeat. That's when I first saw him, just a shape at first, walking along the shoulder maybe 200 yards ahead. My headlights hadn't reached him yet, but I could make out movement against the slightly lighter shade of the desert horizon. Nothing unusual about seeing people on the highway, even at night. Sometimes cars break down, sometimes folks get desperate and try to walk to the next town. But something about the way this person moved made me ease off the accelerator. He wasn't walking like someone trying to get somewhere. He was walking like someone who had nowhere to go, that slow, aimless shuffle that makes you wonder if they even know where they are. As I got closer, my headlights finally caught him full on. Male, probably in his 40s, wearing what looked like a business suit that had seen better days. The jacket was torn at the shoulder, and his white shirt underneath was stained with something dark. His face was pale in my lights, turned slightly toward the road like he was thinking about crossing, but hadn't made up his mind yet. I moved into the left lane to give him space, standard procedure when you see someone on the shoulder. But as I passed, he turned his head to look directly at me. Our eyes met for maybe half a second through my passenger window, and what I saw there made my stomach drop. His eyes were completely black, not just the pupils but the entire eye, like looking into two holes cut out of reality. My hands tightened on the wheel, and I pressed harder on the gas, wanting to put distance between us. But when I checked my right mirror, he was gone. Not walking away, not fallen down, just gone, like he'd never been there at all. The shoulder was empty for as far as my taillights could reach. I told myself he must have stepped down into the desert, maybe slipped down the embankment. These things happen. People do strange things in the middle of the night. But that image of those black eyes stayed with me, burning in my mind every time I blinked. 20 minutes passed. I'd found a classic rock station to keep me alert, Creedence Clearwater Revival asking if I'd ever seen the rain. The speedometer held steady at 72, just enough over the limit to make good time, but not enough to attract attention if a state trooper was hiding behind a rock formation somewhere. That's when everything went wrong. He appeared directly in front of my truck, materialized out of nothing like someone had flipped a switch and put him there. Same man, same torn suit, same pale face, standing in the middle of my lane with his arms at his sides. No time to think, no time to swerve, barely time to slam my foot on the brake before impact. The sound is something I'll never forget. Not the screech of the brakes, though that was loud enough to wake the dead. It was the thud, that horrible, wet sound of a human body meeting the front of a 70,000-pound vehicle going 60 miles an hour. I felt it through the whole truck, the sudden jolt, the way the steering wheel jumped in my hands. The truck jackknifed slightly as I brought it to a stop, sliding sideways across both lanes before finally coming to rest diagonal across the highway. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely put it in park. The engine was still running, headlights cutting across the empty road at an angle, illuminating nothing but asphalt and desert brush. I sat there for maybe 10 seconds, trying to process what had just happened. Then the reality hit me like a second impact. I'd just hit someone. I'd just ended a human life. My career was over, maybe my freedom too, But none of that mattered compared to the fact that somewhere behind my truck was a person who'd been alive seconds ago and wasn't anymore. I grabbed the flashlight from behind my seat and climbed down from the cab. My legs nearly gave out when they hit the ground, adrenaline making everything feel disconnected and strange. The night air was cold, much colder than it should have been for late spring in Arizona, and deadly quiet except for the tick of my cooling engine. I walked to the front of the truck first, shining my light on the grille and bumper. I expected blood, hair, torn clothing, some evidence of the impact I'd felt so clearly. But there was nothing. The chrome was clean, not even a dent or scratch. The license plate wasn't bent. Even the bugs that had been splattered there from earlier in the night were still in the same pattern. My flashlight beam was shaking as I swept it across the road behind the truck. I walked slowly, checking every inch of asphalt, looking for a body, blood, anything. I must have walked 200 yards back, far more than any body could have been thrown, but found absolutely nothing. No blood trail, no scraps of fabric, no shoes that had been knocked off by the impact. I even checked under the truck, thinking maybe the body had gotten caught somehow, dragged along. But there was nothing there either, just the usual collection of road grime and oil stains that accumulate on any commercial vehicle. Standing there in the middle of that empty highway, flashlight beam cutting uselessly through the darkness, I started to question my own sanity. Had I imagined it? Had I fallen asleep for a second and dreamed the whole thing? But I could still feel that impact in my bones, still hear that sound echoing in my ears. I walked back to the cab and grabbed my phone, thinking I should call 911, report what happened even if I couldn't explain it. But what would I say? That I'd hit someone who wasn't there? That I'd felt an impact that left no evidence? They'd think I was on drugs or having a breakdown. As I stood there with the phone in my hand, trying to decide what to do, I heard footsteps on the asphalt behind me. Slow, measured steps, like someone taking their time, in no hurry to get where they were going. I turned around, flashlight raised, and there he was again. Same man, same suit, standing about 50 feet away in the middle of the road. But this time, something was different. This time, he was smiling a wide, unnatural smile that stretched too far across his face. And his eyes, those black holes I'd seen before, seemed to be pulling in the light from my flashlight, absorbing it without reflecting anything back. He started walking toward me, that same shuffling gait I'd seen earlier, but now with purpose, with intention. I backed up against my truck, the cold metal pressing against my spine. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to run, but where could I go? I was in the middle of nowhere, miles from any town, with something impossible walking toward me. When he was about 20 feet away, he stopped. His mouth moved like he was trying to speak, but no sound came out at first. Then, in a voice that sounded like it was coming from very far away, like an echo of an echo, he said, "You can't leave." I didn't respond, couldn't respond. My throat had closed up completely, and all I could do was stand there, flashlight beam wavering between us. "You can't leave," he said again, louder this time. "Not yet. Not until you understand." "Understand what?" I managed to croak out, my voice barely above a whisper. He tilted his head to the side, that terrible smile never wavering. What it feels like, what they all felt, every single one of them, in that last second before impact. I didn't know what he meant, didn't want to know. But images started flooding my mind, unbidden and unwanted. Other vehicles, other highways, other impacts. A family in a minivan on I-40. A motorcycle on Route 66. An elderly woman in a sedan on Highway 60. All of them meeting their end against the front of a truck, maybe even my truck, though I'd never been in an accident before that night. "These aren't mine," I said, the words coming out as a plea. "I've never hit anyone before tonight." "Before you? Haven't you?" he asked, and suddenly I wasn't sure. How many close calls had there been over the years? How many times had I driven when I was too tired, pushed through when I should have stopped? How many times had pure luck been the only thing standing between me and tragedy? The flashlight died in my hand, the darkness rushing in like water filling a hole. But I could still see him, somehow, standing there in the dark, glowing with a faint light that seemed to come from inside him rather than from any external source. "Every mile you drive," he said, his voice now coming from all around me rather than just from where he stood, "you carry the potential for death. Every turn of the wheel is a gamble with someone's life. Tonight, you felt what it's like to lose that gamble. But you're not real," I said, though the words sounded hollow even to me. "You can't be real. There's no body, no evidence." "Real is relative," he replied. What's real is the fear you feel right now. What's real is the knowledge that you came within inches of becoming a killer tonight. What's real is that you'll never forget this feeling, this moment, this understanding of how thin the line is between normal life and tragedy. He started walking backward, still facing me, still smiling. With each step, he seemed to fade a little more, becoming translucent, then transparent, then just a suggestion of a shape in the darkness. "Drive safe," he said, his voice now just a whisper on the wind. "Or next time, there will be a body. Next time, it will be real in all the ways that matter." And then he was gone, completely this time, leaving me alone on that dark highway with nothing but the sound of my own ragged breathing and the tick of my cooling engine. I stood there for a long time, maybe minutes, maybe an hour, I honestly don't know. When I finally got back in the truck, my hands were steady but my mind was racing. I drove the rest of the way to Dallas in complete silence, no radio, no podcasts, nothing but the sound of the road and my own thoughts. I delivered the load, collected my paperwork, and drove the truck back to the company yard in Phoenix. I parked it in the back row, cleaned out my personal belongings, and left the keys on the dispatcher's desk with a note that just said, "I'm done." They called me for weeks afterward, trying to get me to come back. Said I was one of their best drivers, most reliable, safest record. If only they knew how close that safe record had come to ending. Other companies called too. Word gets around when an experienced driver becomes available. But I turned them all down. I work in a warehouse now, loading the trucks I used to drive. The pay isn't as good, and I miss the open road sometimes, miss the freedom and the solitude. But every time I think about getting back behind the wheel, I remember that night, remember the impact that wasn't there, remember those black eyes and that impossible smile. Some of the other warehouse workers are former drivers too, and late at night, during break time when the conversation turns to why we gave it up, I sometimes see a look in their eyes that makes me wonder. Did they have their own encounter out there on some dark highway? Did they meet their own man in the torn suit? Or was it something else, something worse? I've done research since then, spent hours online looking for similar stories. Found more than I expected. Drivers who quit after hitting phantom pedestrians, after seeing things that shouldn't exist, after experiencing impacts that left no trace. There's a whole community of us, apparently, united by experiences we can't explain and memories we can't forget. The highway through Arizona is still there, of course. Trucks still drive it every night, their drivers probably thinking about nothing more than making good time and staying awake. But I wonder how many of them have seen him, the man in the torn suit with the black eyes. How many have felt that impact, heard that sound, searched frantically for a body that was never there? I check the news sometimes, looking for accidents on that stretch of road. There have been 3 in the past year, all involving trucks, all fatal. The official reports blame driver fatigue, excessive speed, mechanical failure. But I wonder if maybe, just maybe, those drivers saw something that made them swerve, made them brake, made them lose control. I wonder if they saw him. My therapist says it was a hallucination brought on by exhaustion, that my mind created an elaborate warning system to tell me I was pushing too hard. She says the fact that I quit driving afterward shows the hallucination served its purpose, kept me from eventually having a real accident. Maybe she's right. It would be comforting to believe that. But late at night, when I'm lying in bed and I hear a truck pass by on the distant highway, I know the truth. I know what I experienced was real, even if it left no physical evidence. I know that there are things out there on those dark roads that exist in the spaces between real and unreal, between life and death, between impact and aftermath. And I know that somewhere out there, on Highway 89 outside Flagstaff, at 3:25 a.m. on some random night, another driver is about to meet a man in a torn suit walking along the shoulder. I hope they're smarter than I was. I hope they don't slow down. I hope they don't look into those black eyes. But most of all, I hope that when he appears in front of their truck, when that impossible impact happens, they have the courage to keep driving afterward. Because I didn't. I couldn't. And while my body may be safe in this warehouse, part of me is still out there on that dark highway, still standing by my truck, still staring into the darkness, still waiting for him to come back. They say driving a truck is one of the most dangerous jobs in America, but they're talking about accident statistics, injury rates, time away from home. They don't know about the other dangers, the ones that don't show up in any safety report, the ones that make experienced drivers hang up their keys and never look back. Sometimes I get calls from young drivers, kids just starting out, asking for advice. I tell them all the usual stuff about checking their equipment, getting enough rest, watching their blind spots. But what I really want to tell them is to pay attention to the old-timers who quit suddenly, who won't talk about why, who get that 1,000-yard stare when someone mentions night driving. We know something they don't. We've seen something they haven't. And once you've experienced it, once you've felt that impact that isn't there, heard that sound that leaves no echo, seen those eyes that shouldn't exist, you can never really leave it behind. Even now, writing this story, sharing it with others, I can feel him out there, waiting on some dark highway, patient and eternal, ready to teach another driver the lesson he taught me. The lesson about how fragile the line is between safety and disaster, between reality and nightmare, between the life you're living and the death you're always 1 second away from causing. So when you see those trucks on the highway late at night, massive machines hurtling through the darkness at 70 miles an hour, remember that the driver inside might be fighting more than just fatigue. They might be watching for something that shouldn't exist, listening for footsteps that have no source, preparing for an impact that will leave no trace except in their memory, burned there forever like those black eyes in the darkness. I thought I hit someone that night, and in a way I did. I hit the end of my driving career, the end of my confidence, the end of my ability to pretend that the world makes sense. But there was no body, because what I hit wasn't entirely physical. It was something else, something that exists in the space between warning and punishment, between potential and actual, between the accident that almost was and the one that will eventually be. Even now, I wonder if it was real. But I know it was. The impact was too vivid, the fear too genuine, the change in my life too complete for it to have been anything else. What do you think?